Hello and welcome to our webinar for today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nashla Dawari and I will be facilitating today. I want to go over a few items with you. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsors for Florida Shines Virtual College Week. They are the Florida Virtual Campus, ACT, Cooter, and Kaltura. This event would not be possible without their support. So again, thank you for making this event possible. Just a couple of housekeeping items for today's sessions. If you have any questions as an attendee, go ahead and put them in the question box throughout the session and we will answer them live with Thomas, our speaker, at the end of the session. Now, although this is a very specific financial aid session, we encourage you not to share personal or financial information via the chat or the question box. Today's session will be recorded and posted on our website, floridashines.org, if you'd like to go through the details of the session after today. Again, we will answer all questions at the end of the session. And we are live on Twitter, so you can share your comments and your questions and connect with us at FL Shines. Now, our speaker for today is Thomas Bowe from State College of Florida, Manatee, Sarasota. We are honored to have him. Thomas has over 20 years of experience in financial aid in various roles. He started in 1996 with the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, and he's also served as Director of Financial Aid for various colleges in Pennsylvania and Florida. Thomas has been featured in various media and news outlets, as well as LA Times. He currently serves as President-elect of Florida Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, and he is the Director of Financial Aid, again, at State College of Florida, Manatee, Sarasota. He's earned his bachelor's degree in marketing from Penn State University, and he's an MBA candidate from the University of South Florida. Again, we are honored to have you, Thomas. We're excited to learn about the FAFSA and the financial aid process with you today. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to present. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Thomas. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, I am ready to get started. I'll just wait until the controllers are given to me, and we'll start with the PowerPoint. Just to let you all know that what we'll be doing is going through a PowerPoint. This PowerPoint is presented by the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. So basically, mostly all your colleges and universities, financial aid staff belong to a basically like an association. This is the National Association. They provide training for all the financial aid offices at colleges and universities. So this PowerPoint is presented each year with updated information. I think it's important when we are presenting financial aid and the application process to first lay down a groundwork. And I know some of you may have actually presented or actually have attended a previous session by Bill Spires, one of my colleagues, on the basic information as far as what aid is out there. We'll cover that briefly again, and then we'll go right into the FAFSA. Now, because the FAFSA does ask a lot of personal information, I'm not going to be able to complete one step-by-step as far as all the questions, but I will cover the questions that are asked on there. I just can't do a virtual completion where I would fill out my name or a dummy name. Even if I did a dummy name, I'd have to have a valid social security number. And so for privacy purposes, I just think it's best we'll go through the slides and talk about the questions I'd asked, and I'll make sure that I cover all the questions. I'll also provide an inside information or inside tips on just what the Department of Ed or the federal government is looking for and why they're asking these questions. And then we'll wrap it up, and there'll be some time for questions from you all as well. I think we have allotted about 2 hours. We won't be taking 2 hours. I also know it's been probably a long day for some of you, and the last thing you need to do is to hear some guy lecture on financial aid for 2 straight hours. So we'll go for, probably it'll be a little more than an hour tops then. So with that said, we'll get started. It's very informal. I think that I see that Mike Neff is serving as the moderator. I think if there's any questions, feel free to post those, and certainly want to be able to help you out with any questions you have.
And Thomas, you should have access to your progressing through your slides. So if you want to try it, we are set to go with that as well.
Looks like it is working, yeah.
Great.
Okay. So we'll get started. As I mentioned, these slides are from the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. It's what you need to know about financial aid. And this is the topics we'll be discussing today. We'll talk about financial aid, what's available out there. We'll actually cover some important terms that you're going to hear a lot from financial aid offices throughout the time that you're going to be in college and applying for financial aid. Such terms like cost of attendance, expected family contribution, financial need. And then we'll go into the main types and categories of financial aid. Wrapping it up then with the, as I mentioned, the questions on the FAFSA, and then lastly, special circumstances. Now this is self-explanatory. Financial aid, it's funds provided to help you, the student, and or parents help pay for your college expenses. The cost of attendance budget it's a term that's used by financial aid offices when we award the student financial aid. Now the cost of attendance budget, it has different factors in it. Direct costs and indirect costs. They're combined to form the COA, the cost of attendance budget, and it varies widely from college to college. Now the inside information on why cost of attendance is important is this. The Department of Education has a regulation for financial aid applicants and recipients. You as a college student receiving financial aid cannot receive financial aid. This is all sources of financial aid, which we'll get into in a little bit. You cannot receive financial aid exceeding the cost of attendance budget set by the school. Now, when the school sets the cost of attendance budget, it is not only tuition costs. We understand that students have various costs, whether it be on-campus housing, off-campus housing, food, transportation, tuition, of course, books and supplies, technology, even loan fees when you borrow some student loans. We take all these factors into consideration and many others, and we form this kind of inflated budget. It's not the actual realized cost, but it's indirect costs as well. So, for example, at my school, State College of Florida, our tuition is about $103 per credit. So for a student attending full-time, 24 credits a year, that's a little over $2,400 just tuition. As I mentioned, we take other costs into consideration, your housing, things like that. So for our cost of attendance, though, for a student who's residing with their parent, a commuter, our cost of attendance for 1 year is over $10,000 because we understand you have other related costs, transportation, etc. So keep that in mind. It varies widely from college to college. If you're attending like a state college, a state institution, community college, obviously your cost of attendance budget that's set by the school is going to be a little less as compared to maybe a private university or going out of state because those costs are going to be more. What is the expected family contribution? Now, the expected family contribution is a term you're going to hear by the Department of Ed. It's also very related to the FAFSA. When you complete your FAFSA, at the very end of the FAFSA, you're going to get a number. It's going to say expected family contribution, your EFC. That EFC, your expected family contribution, as mentioned here, it's the amount that the Department of Ed has determined that a family can reasonably be considered to contribute towards the cost of the student's education. That is a constant. It stays the same no matter what college you go to. As I mentioned, cost of attendance can vary based upon the actual costs and the indirect costs per college. Your EFC is derived from the FAFSA using two components. It's going to ask information on the FAFSA from you, the student, and also your parents' information if you're a dependent student. They take that information on the FAFSA and a federal formula that Department of Education and Congress have created to determine your EFC number. That EFC number is used to determine your eligibility for financial aid, which we'll go into further then. But just keep in mind your EFC is the determinant of your need based upon the FAFSA. So your determinant of need, as I just mentioned briefly, cost of attendance, which we covered, varies from school to school. It's indirect and direct costs, minus your EFC, expected family contribution from the FAFSA, comes up with your financial need. That financial need then is what we in financial aid offices at colleges are going to try to help you get different sources of financial aid so you, the student or parent, don't bear the burden of paying out of pocket as much. Now there's two categories of financial aid. There's need-based aid and non-need-based aid. Your need-based aid is generally derived from the FAFSA and that EFC number. They're going to use that EFC number to determine whether or not you qualify your need-based aid. It's all based upon the information you put on the FAFSA. Your non-need-based aid basically is anybody could possibly qualify for your non-need-based aid. It's not restricted based upon your FAFSA information or your financial information. It could be other criteria though, but it's not related to your financial information. Related to categories is several subcategories. Gift aid. Now gift aid can be the form of scholarships and grants, meaning that it's basically something that you're not going to have to contribute towards. You're getting a gift. So your scholarships is money that does not have to be paid back. Your scholarships can be awarded on various criteria, whether it be merit, skill, unique characteristics. I'm sure you've heard of athletic scholarships, academic achievement scholarships. Some people play musical instruments. It could be along those lines, specific skills. It does vary. And I'll talk about different sources of scholarships and where you can go, ideas and things like that on obtaining scholarships and a little later as well. Continuing with gift aid, again, free sources of financial aid. You don't have to contribute, don't have to pay anything or do anything yourself. Again, money that does not have to be paid back. Grants are similar to scholarships. It's usually awarded on the basis of financial need, and it doesn't have to be paid back. So in this one with grants, you're going to see probably the majority of grants that you're going to be awarded, if you're eligible, will be based upon need, based upon that EFC number. The lower the EFC number, the higher the need. If you have a lower EFC, that means that the Department of Education and Congress have determined that you, the student, and the family are not able to contribute as much out of pocket. So financial aid offices, other sources have to try to help you out with trying to get gift aid grants. Now your self-help aid. Self-help aid basically means that you, the student and or the parent, have to do something to contribute to getting that source of aid. One of those is loans. You look at that as, you are contributing to the fact that you're borrowing money and it's going to have to be paid back later. Loans are, again, money students and parents borrow to help pay for college expenses. Typically, with your student loans, repayment usually begins after education is finished. Financial aid offices are stressing all the time, and it's been a big topic the past probably decade nationwide, and even when you see presidential runs and even your senators, they talk about student loan debt. It's a big topic nowadays. We're stressing in financial aid offices, and we want to stress to you, the student, only borrow what is needed. When you fill out your FAFSA, when you explore your gift aid, go for the gift aid first, the grants and scholarships. After that, if you still need some funds to pay your educational related costs, then you want to pursue loans. When I say all this stuff, only borrow what's needed, I'm not trying to scare you from borrowing loans. You want to look at loans as an investment in your future. Sometimes you're going to need to borrow loans, but only borrow what's necessary. I can tell you firsthand experience. Many years ago, I was an 18-year-old college student, and I qualified for student loans, and we'll talk about the qualification process in a little later. As an 18-year-old student, I wasn't sure, much about money matters or handling credit, and I remember borrowing money, and I borrowed extra and got this nice refund check from the college because it pays tuition-related expenses first, and whatever's left over, you may get a refund check. I ended up taking that money, and I was went to spring break, and I ended up buying laptop gaming computers, and next thing you know, 20 years down the road, I've got about $30,000, $40,000 in student loan debt that I'm still paying. And if you think about that, these are loans that accrue interest throughout time. And so this is why it's important to only borrow what's necessary. Don't borrow extra. Continuing on with self-help aid, again, funds that you need to contribute to obtain work, study, employment. Now, this is a good source of financial aid in the fact that what it is it goes based upon, mostly upon your EFC, need-based aid. These are jobs on campus or off campus at nonprofit organizations. So you're actually working a part-time job. The reason why they call it work study, though, is the fact that your employer, usually financial aid offices, registrar, the gym, library, different departments at a college or university, and nonprofit organizations off campus, they actually will understand that your academics, your studies, they come first. So, I got that somebody? Oh. I'm going to continue, but just let you know there's static in the background.
Hey, Thomas, this is Nashla. I think we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay. How are you doing now?
We're still hearing some background noise.
Yeah, that's not coming from my end because I'm hearing the same thing. It's not coming from me.
Thomas, Jean, can you hear me?
Hold on 1 minute.
So if you'd give us a minute, we are just fixing it in the back end here. Thomas, if you'd give us 1 second. Okay, so we should be okay now. Thomas, are you okay hearing us fine?
Yeah, I think I'm okay.
Perfect, okay. And so you should have power back with your control panel to progress through your slides. Sorry about the interruption. Thank you.
Okay. Should I backtrack? Do you know where I started losing the audio?
I believe it was at the beginning of that slide.
Okay. So just
thank you.
So just continuing on with your self-help aid, just to let you know, work, study, employment. Now these are jobs on campus, various departments at your college or university you attend, or off campus at nonprofit organizations. The good thing about these is that your employer understands that your academics and your studies come first. So they're going to provide you flexible hours with the understanding if you say, hey, you know what, I've got exams to study for, can I have off? Well, they're going to understand your academics come first. They'll work around that. The good thing also about these work, study, employment is that it provides good, valuable experience. I can tell you that what you're going to get is actually good firsthand experience in the business world. You might even get some related experience to whatever major you're interested in. So if you're, for example, interested in pursuing law, you may be able to work at, the local courthouse or nonprofit organizations by working with your college and university and get some good experience. These people could write you letters of recommendation for grad school, or it'll actually get you just some firsthand experience or exposure to a field you may be interested in. So it's something you may want to consider. If you're interested in that, then you certainly want to reach out to the financial aid office of the school that you're interested in pursuing. So let's go into the sources of financial aid. The largest source of financial aid comes from your federal government. We'll touch on that briefly. Then there's also states, colleges and universities, private sources, civic organizations and churches, and employers. Again, as I mentioned, federal government is the largest source of financial aid. The aid is awarded primarily on the basis of financial need. You must apply each year using the FAFSA. Keep that in mind. Your FAFSA is not a once and done thing. You must file your FAFSA every year. We'll talk about that a little later. But in order to qualify for various sources of federal aid, even some state aid, even possibly some other sources, they may require the FAFSA. You must apply every year, and it's based upon financial need for the federal government sources. So here's the main list of federal student aid programs. The largest grant program out there is your federal Pell Grant. This is based upon financial need, based upon your FAFSA and your EFC. Largest amount of need, your EFC of 0, would qualify based upon full-time enrollment a little over $5,800 in federal Pell Grant a year. It's all based upon your need and also your enrollment. For example, if someone's attending half-time as opposed to full-time, they would get less. Iraq and Afghanistan service grants related to the military. Those, the next one is the Teacher Education Assistance for College and Higher Education Grant, those interested in education. Now, your next one I want to cover in a little more detail is your Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, your FSEOG. This is awarded based upon need, your EFC. It's also awarded based upon your application deadline as derived by the school. So here's how it works, inside information, again, from a financial aid administrator perspective. Schools are allotted a specific amount of Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, your FSEOG grant. Schools are given a budget. It's a limited amount of budget. It's spread around all the schools throughout the country. So what the school then has the authority to award based upon need, and they also will set a criteria on early applicants, priority application. A lot of your financial aid offices and schools will set a priority application deadline. For example, for us, we typically, for State College of Florida, we usually set ours roughly around the end of March, early April. Other schools have other deadlines. So it's important to follow. They're going to go based upon your information. When you submitted that FAFSA, assuming it's submitted correctly with no errors, that priority deadline, those who apply early and you actually have a high amount of need, meaning your EFC is low, then you could qualify for the FSEOG. First come, first serve, one of those deals. But here's the thing related to that. You will only be considered for the FSEOG grant if you're eligible for a federal Pell Grant. If you're not eligible for a federal Pell Grant, you will not be eligible for the FSEOG grant. Federal Work Study, I covered that. Now with the Federal Work Study, again, jobs on campus or off campus at nonprofit organizations, you can work up to 20 hours per week while you're in school. And it's like a job, as I mentioned. And this is also one of those that are first come, first serve. There's limited amount of jobs on campus and off campus and the budget available. So if you're interested in FSEOG or Federal Work Study, pay attention to the priority application deadline and get your FAFSA in as soon as possible then. Your Federal Perkins loans, these are loans that the school is the administrator of these loans. It's a federal loan where you're going to be responsible to pay back. Now, I'm going to go into the biggest loan program, which is your direct loans. Your Federal Perkins loan, there's limited amounts based upon the school's budget that they're given on Federal Perkins loans, but your subsidized and unsubsidized loans, there's limitations and there's a big amount of funds that are available out there. Let me go into that a little bit now here. So when you fill out your FAFSA, as I mentioned, you get the EFC. I hate to sound like a broken record, but I want to stress EFC determines need. Now your subsidized loan is based upon need, your EFC. Subsidized loan basically it stands for this. While you're in school, as long as you're enrolled in at least 6 credits, the interest that accrues on that loan while you're enrolled in at least 6 credits per semester, meaning the fall and the spring, not the summer. So your fall typically goes about August to December, and then your spring semester goes from January to May. While you're in school, your subsidized loan, as long as you take at least 6 credits per semester, the interest that accrues on that loan is subsidized, meaning you don't pay interest that accrues on that loan. The Department of Ed subsidizes and waives that interest. So you're basically getting an interest-free loan while you're in school. Okay? This is determined by your need, though. Not everybody will qualify for your subsidized loan. Here's some inside information a formula, and I'll go slow on this if you want to write this down or you're wondering how you're eligible for subsidized loan. This is the formula that's used by Department of Ed and financial aid offices. You take that cost of attendance budget that is determined by the school that we covered earlier. You subtract your EFC that is from the FAFSA, and then you subtract any of your gift aid, meaning your scholarships and your grants. Then you're going to get your subsidized loan eligibility. Now, your subsidized loan eligibility is further limited to the fact that based upon your grade level. Okay, I want you to keep that in mind as well. For example, somebody who is a dependent student, which many should be a dependent student, we'll cover dependency in a little bit, and you're a freshman incoming student, then your limitations for a subsidized loan is going to be $5,500 a year. If you want more information on subsidized loans, I'll give you a website now you can write down. It has more information on loans, the entire process, also your eligibility, how much you're allowed to borrow max per year. There's also a lifetime limit on how much you can borrow as a lifetime student. Go to studentloans.gov. This is a Department of Ed website that has all the information out there. Studentloans.gov. Your studentloans.gov website, all schools for the most part use this. They're going to ask you to, if you're interested in a loan, to do entrance counseling. This is a requirement to obtain federal student loans, your direct loans. What that is, it takes about 40 minutes. You do an online training session or an online info session that explains your rights and responsibilities as a student loan borrower so you know what you're getting involved with. So explain things as your terms, your interest rate. Also related to that is your deferment and your forbearance and your grace period. I'll talk a little about that now. When you're enrolled in school, as long as you go continuously, at least 6 credits, fall and spring, you're not going to pay on that loan, as I mentioned that. Also, it's subsidized. Your interest is deferred. If you drop to less than 6 credits, less than half-time status, and or let's say drop out or take a break, you get 1 grace period per the life of your loan. So what's going to happen in that grace period? Let's say you decide to take a semester off. You've got 6 months, okay, 6 months basically to find a job, get on your feet, get some money saved up. If you don't enroll with at least 6 credits, your student loan is going to become due. That grace period, you get 6 months, and then your grace period's over, then you start making monthly payments. You get 1 grace period per lifetime of your loan. This is all explained on studentloans.gov. Your unsubsidized loan is not based upon need. It's not based upon your EFC. Basically, anybody could be eligible for an unsubsidized loan. It's not based upon that at all. The unsubsidized loan, I'll give you the formula for this right now. Cost of attendance budget minus any other sources of financial aid equals remaining need unsubsidized loan. Check on studentloans.gov based upon your entering class. If you're a freshman dependent, how much you're eligible for. It's about $9,500 a year is the max you can borrow. Now, these loans, subsidized and or unsubsidized, are not credit-based loans. The only requirement is that you are pursuing a degree at a U.S. Department of Ed approved school and enrolling at least 6 credits per semester, half-time status. So they're not going to check your credit rating. It's not determined by your credit rating. You, the student, are borrowing that loan and will automatically qualify. Again, stressing, only borrow what's necessary. This is a debt you will have to pay back later. Your unsubsidized loan, keep this in mind. It will accrue interest while you're in school. That interest is not subsidized. So what's going to happen is you're going to get interest payments on a quarterly basis, every 3 months. If you cannot pay that interest payment, then you do have the option of capitalizing it. I don't recommend that. Now, I mean that quarterly interest statement is basically, I'll give you an estimate. For like a $3,500 loan, every 3 months, you'll probably get maybe like a $30 interest bill in the mail, $30, like $10 per month. If you don't pay that quarterly interest statement, you can capitalize it. So if you're taking a $3,500 loan, hypothetically, you get a quarterly interest statement of $35, you don't pay it, you can capitalize it, meaning add that $35 onto your loan to pay later after you graduate. But if you think about this, a $3,500 loan after the first quarterly interest statement, now that's $3,535. We added $35 onto that principal. Think about this. If you're in school 5, 6 years, that interest, if you don't make any interest, continues to compound and compound and compound, meaning it adds on to your loan, interest on top of interest. So it's not much. I recommend that if you get an unsubsidized loan, pay the quarterly interest statement. Continuing on then, after you explore all the various sources of federal student aid, even possibly private sources and state aid, then if you still are short funds to pay your cost of attendance or your tuition or any other related educational bill, then the parent can explore a Federal Plus loan. A Federal Plus loan is a loan in the parent's name. They are taking it out on the student's behalf. The Federal Plus loan is a credit-based loan. They are going to check the credit rating, the student's credit rating. I'm sorry, check the parent's credit rating. They're going to pull the parent's credit rating. So the parent may not have sufficient credit, and they could be denied. Tip inside information from a financial aid administrator's perspective to help you all out. If you still need sources of financial aid and you exhaust all other options, I still would recommend the parent apply for a Federal Plus loan. Even if you think your credit is not good enough, you'll be denied. It's important that actually you apply and you get that denial, because if you are denied, the parent is denied the Federal Plus loan, then the student will automatically be considered an independent student, and the student could qualify for an additional unsubsidized loan in their name. Remember, the unsubsidized loan is not credit-based, so the student could qualify for an additional amount of loans if the parent is denied. So it's beneficial for the parent to apply. If the parent applies and they're accepted, they're not obligated to take the loan. So it doesn't hurt to apply, maybe just to get the denial. Okay, just to let you all know. Moving on then, states. Now, states have their own residency requirements. One of the questions on the FAFSA that's going to ask the student and the parent is, are you a resident of the state of Florida? Yes or no? If not, then when did you or the parent actually arrive, move to Florida? Provide a month and date. That's to determine whether or not you're a resident. Most schools and states set a residency requirement of 12 months, 12 consecutive months living in the state of Florida, providing proof of housing, proof of bills, and this will establish your in-state tuition. If you're not a resident of the school that you're attending in the state of Florida, then you would be charged out-of-state tuition. Many schools charge up to 3-4 times out-of-state tuition. Also related to residency requirements is that if you're a resident, you may qualify for Florida state grants. Now, there's different grants available: Florida Medallions, Florida Gold Seal. The website to explore Florida state grants, which is often referred to as Bright Futures, is floridastudentfinancialaid.org. The application for the state grant is on that website, and the deadline is August 31st. I recommend, again, applying early on that. Colleges and universities, they also have their own sources of institutional aid. It can vary. It could be gift aid or self-help aid, whether it be their own sources of loans, their own jobs. They may use the FAFSA or institutional applications. The biggest thing I want to stress is go on the financial aid website of the college you're interested in attending, contact the financial aid office, and just check with their deadlines. They have different ones. For example, at State College of Florida, we annually award over $1 million in scholarships a year. And a lot of our scholarships go unclaimed because students just don't take the time to explore the options in the application. Definitely do your homework. I tell students all the time, if somebody offers me, say, a $1,000 scholarship or a $2,000 scholarship just for filling out a piece of paper, writing an essay, it's going to take me maybe 30 minutes to an hour. Well, that's like, about that. Why would you turn that down? There are a lot of unclaimed scholarships, honestly, that students just aren't aware of. They just don't complete. So check with the financial aid office, check the website, check the foundation website at the college or university that you attend. Continuing on, other sources of financial aid, there's foundations, there's businesses, charitable organizations, just looking at different places. There's even employers. For example, I know that UPS, they offer a scholarships for workers, dependents. There's McDonald's offers it, Coca-Cola. There's different sources. Parents, employers, check those out. Check private sources out. Research early. You can actually research if you're planning on attending college next year. Try to research up to even like a year ahead in advance. I'm going to give you a website now as we go through these scholarships, but the website that, again, one of those inside information that financial aid offices endorse and Department of Ed endorses. This is a scholarship database that you can actually, it's free to look into and apply. FASTWeb, FASTWEB, FASTWeb.org, I believe. The biggest thing I can tell you about scholarships is never pay to apply for a scholarship. Logically, if you think about it, never pay money to get free money. So if you have a company out there that's telling you to fill out this application and send us this fee, we'll get you scholarships. It's a scam. You should never have to pay money to get free money. FASTWeb is endorsed by the Department of Ed and colleges. It's a free scholarship database where you can search available scholarships. Continuing on then, just if you belong to a church, a civic organization, parents belong to it, check them. Don't be afraid to apply for small scholarships. There are small scholarships like $250, $500. They all add up. They really do. So like if you get 4 scholarships for $250, well, that's $1,000. You know, $1,000 can pay for books and supplies for a year, possibly. So apply for the small ones even. Don't be afraid to put in the work. The chat site, Mike just mentioned the website fastweb.com. So that's your scholarship database, fastweb.com. And also earlier for the Bright Futures, FloridaStudentFinancialAid.org. So I mentioned employers earlier, research employers, they may have some benefits as well. Employer, if you're working part-time, check their human resource office. At this time, we're going to pause real quick, and then we're going to jump into the FAFSA at this time. So I'm going to pause real quick for just a couple minutes in case anybody has any questions on the sources of aid that I put out there so far or anything related to the calculations. Again, borrow what's only necessary. Check out student loan information on studentloans.gov. Explore those options out there and understand your eligibility requirements.
Thomas, this is Nashla. We're monitoring the question box to see any incoming questions, but we wanted to ask you actually a question that came up last week, and that's, have you heard of the website called raise.me? It's a scholarship website. If you've heard of it, could you talk about it a little bit?
I apologize, I have not.
Okay.
For the most part, I can tell you schools, only the schools that I have worked with throughout my career and also serving as the president-elect of Florida Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, we have only endorsed FASTWeb. Certainly, if you're seeing a website, check the Better Business Bureau, see the legitimacy of the company. If they have dealt with other schools, contact other schools is the biggest tip I can say. But the ones that we endorse and DOE endorses is FASTWeb. And actually, FAFSA we even mentioned on DOE websites and on the FAFSA as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's jump in and just feel free to let me know about questions. I'm going to continue. We're going to jump right into the FAFSA. Now, the FAFSA, what that is, as I mentioned, it needs to be applied, completed every year. You apply every year, okay? So make sure you look into this. The FAFSA can be completed electronically or paper form. I recommend doing it electronically. In fact, about a study was recently done. Only about less than 1% completed using a paper form. If you do it by paper form, you're going to leave yourself open to just maybe some even errors, writing it on the data, completing in the wrong box. Any errors can delay the process, really. Even if you're doing it by paper, you've got to send it via postal mail. If you're sending it via postal mail, that can take a while. By completing it electronically online, it's quick, it's secure. Department of Ed provides, say you're filling information out and you put an answer in there that just doesn't make any sense, well, Department of Ed won't let you move forward. So this is why it's just beneficial to complete it online. It is available in English and Spanish. Now we'll just go into now just basic information on that, the deadlines, information. As I mentioned, the FAFSA determines your EFC. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. You all know that. I've repeated it several times. Colleges use EFC to award financial aid then. The FAFSA can be filled at any time during the academic year, but no earlier than October 1st prior to the academic year for which the student requests aid. This is new. This is what I want to stress. For the 17-18 FAFSA, so if you are a high school senior and you're looking to go to school next year during the academic year typically is July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. That's the 17-18 year. Again, July 1st, 2017 until June 30th, 2018. That FAFSA, the 17-18 FAFSA, was available after anytime October 1st, 2016. Keep in mind, though, I stressed, colleges have that priority application. Remember those limited funds, FSEOG, work study. Check the deadlines on that. But the FAFSA is available right now if you haven't completed it yet for the 17-18 year. If you're looking to go 18-19 year, again, July 1st, 2018 until June 30th, 2019, so you're a high school junior, well, the FAFSA won't be available until October 1st of this upcoming year then, for that year. Your FAFSA on the web. Now you go on to FAFSA.gov. Just want to make sure you're all aware of that, FAFSA, FAFSA.gov, and you're going to get the landing page is like this. Right now, if you go on, you'll see there's 2 active FAFSAs. This is a new change that just occurred this year. Federal regulations changed, where right now there's 2 active FAFSAs. In fact, though, it gets a little confusing, but both are using the 2015 tax year data. It's a big change where we're now using prior year tax data. In the past, when you fill out your FAFSA for whatever academic year you're looking to attend, say it's a 17-18 year, hypothetically in the past, you would have to fill out your FAFSA with the prior 17-18 would have been your 2016 tax year data, which you would be filing or about to file. But this past year, Department of Ed changed. They're now using prior year tax data. So you think two tax years ago. I know it's a lot of information. It can be a little confusing, but I just want to stress that. So this is brand new. So let's say you're looking to attend this summer. If you're looking to attend this summer, check with your financial aid office and they'll determine whether or not your summer is the 16-17 FAFSA or the 17-18 FAFSA. Regardless, whichever FAFSA you complete right now, you're going to use your 2015 tax information. Moving forward then, it's going to be prior year. So right now, the 16-17 FAFSA is using 15 tax information, 1 year old. For 17-18 and moving forward, we'll be using two-year tax information. This slide actually goes into detail what I just explained thoroughly. Again, if you look at it. So right now, moving forward, you see in bold down there that chart. If you plan to attend college from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, you're going to submit the 2017-18 FAFSA. You can submit it anytime from the following dates. October 1st, as I mentioned, is when it was first available in 2016. through June 30th, 2018, and you're using income and tax information from the 2015 year. Next year, there's your information for next year then. So I'll hold here for a little bit so you can see this chart for a little bit then before continuing. Okay, continue on. This covers what I mentioned earlier, good reasons why it's a good idea to file electronically. As I mentioned, over 99% of the applicants do it through FAFSA.gov website. I mentioned the errors, the skip logic. at some point, and I'll explain this in a little detail, in the past there was an option to log into the IRS data retrieval site. So if you file taxes online, you could actually go through the IRS website, you, the student and parent, when the FAFSA asks for your tax information, you can actually log into IRS and actually transfer the IRS tax information over to the FAFSA to ensure accuracy. It's not even if you filed your FAFSA, if you filed your taxes online. If you filed your taxes, IRS, as long as you haven't done it within, if you did the 2015 longer than, as long as it wasn't within the past 60 days, it's available online. Now, here's the thing, though. Most recently, this is a big change that just occurred, and you'll probably have seen it in the news. If not, you can certainly Google it. On the FAFSA website, when you complete your FAFSA, as I mentioned, the IRS data retrieval site, where you can transfer the IRS tax information, that is down at this time for maintenance. IRS and the partner has recently released information stating that it's down for maintenance to ensure security, enhance security protocols. Everybody's aware of identity theft issues going on, so they're actually updating the security protocols on there. It's going to be down. This is information. I'm not sure if they released the exact date, but it's going to be down projected until October. So you won't be able to use IRS data retrieval right now. So when you fill out your FAFSA, your tax information, your 2015 tax information alongside with you, the student and parent, if you filed taxes and work, because it's going to ask you questions from that tax return, and you now can't do the IRS data retrieval. So you got to be very careful when looking information up on your tax returns and transmitting it or transferring it onto the FAFSA and submitting it. Make sure that everything adds up and is correct. And we'll go into that a little further in a later slide. As I mentioned, this is the IRS data retrieval. I'm just going to skip this right now. This is how you can do it online and transfer. It is down till October at this time, but definitely if you want to research that, you can. Okay, so we're going to go right now into the FAFSA. When you actually go to FAFSA's website, the first thing you're going to need to do, you, the student, and the parent, if the student is dependent, which they most likely are, you're going to need to register for a FSA user ID. That FSA user ID, the student and parent each need one, allows you to sign the application electronically. Now, it's not required necessarily, but it does speed up the processing. That's your signature, how you sign the FAFSA. Otherwise, if you don't do the electronic signature through the FSA ID, you can send your signature through the mail, and that can be delayed and take up to 8 to 10 weeks. So what's going to happen is you'll need to go to this website, the bottom right of the slide, fsaid.ed.gov. It's going to look like that. Create an FSA ID. You're going to need to create a username and a password, have a valid email, one for student, one for the parent. And then that's going to be used for your FAFSA to sign it. It also, another information helpful hint, it also can be used to sign your master promissory note and to do entrance counseling if you're interested in borrowing student loans. Remember, I mentioned studentloans.gov. It's going to ask you for your FSA ID. If you have an FSA ID, rather than do a paper application to sign the master promissory note for the loan, you can do it all online to speed up the process. So we're going to FAFSA now. What's going to happen is, right in the beginning, after you log in with your FSA user ID, it's first going to ask for the general student information. First, it's going to ask for the student's demographic information. As I mentioned, I can't do a step-by-step question because I don't have a dummy account, can't create one, but there's certainly all these categories, and I'll go over each then. Demographic questions will be things like your name, your date of birth, and your address and phone number and your email. Then it's going to ask social security number, your citizenship status. You must be a valid U.S. citizen or a permanent resident to qualify for federal student aid. It is then going to ask whether you, the student, is married. What's your marital status? This determines, along with other questions later I'll cover, eligibility for whether or not you're going to be considered a dependent or an independent student. If you're married, you, the student, is married, you're considered an independent student. If you're married, then you must provide yours and your spouse information. Drug convictions, whether or not you've ever been convicted of drugs. If you're been convicted of drugs, it doesn't necessarily eliminate you from federal student aid eligibility. It's just that you may have to provide additional information. You may have to complete a rehab program and provide documentation to be eligible. Selective service. What this is the military draft. If you're a male and 18 years old, you must register for selective service. This is the law. In order to qualify for federal student aid, you, the student, a male student, must register for selective service. So it's going to ask, have you registered? If you have not registered, then you can actually click yes through FAFSA's website and they'll register you. And the last questions are based upon just general demographics, level of parents' school completion. I'm going to pause here because I see here Mike has just said that there's a question that has come in, and so I'll be glad to answer the question. Turn it over to who's on there.
Yeah, hi Thomas, this is Nashla. We've had a question come in as you were talking about dependent or independent filing statuses. And so if someone is a long-term non-relative caregiver for a step niece, they are wondering whether or not she would be considered a dependent or independent student for the FAFSA. And then for that caregiver, if they don't file taxes because they are on a program like Social Security Disability, what do you recommend? Any extra steps or things to consider there?
Okay. Well, I'll go right now. Actually, it's a good place to actually. It's a great segue, great question. So I appreciate that. Great segue into dependency and independent status. So let me go into that and explain that, and then I'll cover the question as well. So based upon Department of Ed guidelines, there's two classifications of students: dependent or independent student. You are considered a dependent student unless you fit any one of these qualifications. Let me explain it now real quick. And there'll be questions on the FAFSA that will ask all these questions, and if you indicate why on yes for any of these, then you'll be considered an independent student. You must provide possibly documentation to verify it. If it's a no, then you're a dependent student. So if you're over the age of 24, you're considered an independent student. If you're married, you're considered an independent student. If you have children that you provide more than 50% financial support to the student, this is all student questions. If the student provides more than 50% financial support for any children or any dependents that the student provides more than 50% financial support, you're considered an independent student. If they are active service military or a veteran of the military, they may be considered independent. If they're any time we're in foster care prior to the age of 13, they're considered an independent student. If they are homeless or at risk of being homeless, providing documentation of being homeless, independent student. Otherwise, or another one is special circumstances, which we'll cover. You can petition through your financial aid office if you provide valid documentation. Case of abuse, neglect along those lines, or orphan ward of the court, then you can be an independent student. Otherwise, if you don't meet any of those criteria, you are considered a dependent student. As a dependent student, then, you must provide parent information on the FAFSA. They need to apply for a federal student ID, and they need to answer the questions under the parent section of the FAFSA, which follows the student questions, student information first. Question on the caregiver. It depends on whether that caregiver has legal guardianship, documented guardianship, then the student's an independent student. If that caregiver, say, is the actual parent, then, whether it be along those lines, given legal obligation and parental duties, they may be required to complete that. If the student's an orphan or ward of the court, documentation provided, then the student could be an independent student. So it really depends on the question specific or the circumstances specifically. Feel free to reach out to the financial aid office you're interested in attending. Now also, the question also is if that person is filling out the FAFSA, either the parent or the legal guardian, if they're required to fill out the FAFSA and provide parental information and they're not working, then there'll be questions on when you fill out your tax information. Did you file taxes in the year 2015? Well, you would just indicate we did not file FAFSA. I'm sorry, we did not file taxes, and you have no tax information, no wage information. Social Security disability wages are not required to be disclosed on the FAFSA. So we'll go into that a little further shortly, but basically it's going to ask, did you earn any wages? Did you file taxes? Did you pay any taxes in 2015? You would just indicate no, 0, 0. Hopefully that answers the question. I will continue on at this time then, and if you have a follow-up, certainly the moderator will let me know, and I certainly can answer. And those others that have questions, I'll be glad to answer those as well. So continuing on, I just covered actually the next slide already. As I mentioned, it was a perfect segue because I knew it was coming. I already covered the dependency status questions. And it's going to ask you that. If it's no, then you're a dependent. If it's a yes, then you're an independent. If you're an independent student, you don't need your parents' information. You don't need to have your parents sign the FAFSA if any of those conditions exist. Again, for the most part, it's 24 years old, married, have children, veteran, orphan ward of the court, homeless, abuse, neglect, anything along those lines. So once the student completes their information, remember the demographics, information, dependent, independent status, and then what's going to happen is the parent's information is going to come up. It's going to ask right away, did you file your taxes in 2015? Did you file, what type of tax form did you file? 1040, 1040A, 1040EZ. Okay, so you would have your taxes next to you. This is the parent's perspective, okay? Parents have your taxes next to you and look on top the form. Then you indicate what form. It's then going to ask questions like the number of exemptions, which you can get right on tax forms, the number of exemptions. It's also going to ask whether you're a dislocated worker. A dislocated worker is somebody who has lost their job, terminated, downsizing, whether you're a dislocated worker. It will also ask your means tested benefit, federal benefits, meaning if you're under food stamps, things along those lines, then you would indicate that here as well, because that goes into a formula to determine your eligibility. It will ask you questions on your wages earned, your adjusted gross income. This is all through your taxes. Make sure that you get the information right off the tax return, because if you have errors, that will delay the process. Now, a helpful hint inside, an insider perspective, is that when you're filling out that FAFSA, let's say you're not sure exactly, oh, where is the adjusted gross income it's asking me for? Well, you're going to click on that question. On the right-hand side of the FAFSA, on that screen, it's going to say helpful hints and tips. It's going to say, oh, you're looking for the, for example, it's going to say you're looking for the adjusted gross income. If you filed a 1040 tax return, look at this specific line item on that tax return, and that's where you can get the 1040. I mean, that's where you can get the adjusted gross income. If you filed a 1040A, I believe it's line 12A, it'll say that, and you can actually transfer that information. So you look at the helpful hints. If you're stuck on a question on the right-hand side, a little bubble that's on the right-hand side, say helpful hints and tips. So then it'll ask your taxes paid. Again, right off the tax return as well. It will then ask your assets. Now, your assets basically can be cash, checking, savings, any investments you have, real estate. Now, when in real estate information, real estate is not the home you own and live in. It's investment real estate. Now, your stocks and bonds, your investment sources, those sources are basically what it is your liquidable value. So if you were to liquidate your stocks and bonds, your investment accounts today, what would be the value if you liquidated it? It's not going to be the value in 20 years. when it matures, or the value a week or two, or a week ago, or a month ago, okay? It's got to be, it basically is if you liquidate your assets. Your untaxed income, so you got any other sources of income. I'm not talking about Social Security, disability. Let's say you work under the table, or let's say maybe a relative just gave you some money, $1,000, someone helped you pay bills. Any sources like that, it's considered untaxed income. You must disclose that. And it's going to ask similar questions. Again, same category of questions for the student. And after it, it'll ask the parents first, and then it's going to break into the next section with the information about student and spouse, tax, income, and other financial information, dislocated worker status. Again, same categories of questions, but from the student's perspective. It says and spouse because if the student's an independent student, provide your spouse information as well. And then after that, it is going to ask for what college you're planning on going to or are going to be going to. Now, if you're not sure which college you're going to, that's fine. You don't have to make a decision the day you fill out your FAFSA. In fact, on the FAFSA, you've got space for up to 10 schools. If you're not sure, list as many schools as you may be interested in. What that does is it transmits your FAFSA record to the financial aid office of the school, and they can make a determination. So if you're not sure, whether or not you're going to a school and it's all based upon how much you, the student or the parent, can afford, you get your aid sources first. Here's your inside information. Fill out your FAFSA. Complete all the schools you're interested in going to. Fill out the FAFSA and then contact the financial aid office and say, hey, can you give me a preliminary estimate or award? And so that way I know what I'm going to be eligible for and how much I may have to pay out of pocket for myself or for my child. So you have up to 10 spaces. Okay. FAFSA preparer information. Don't worry about this unless you have a professional organization complete your FAFSA. As I mentioned before, scams out there, scholarships, don't pay someone to fill out your FAFSA. It's a simple process, takes about 20 to 30 minutes, honestly, as long as you have your tax information by your side. There's information that helps you out on there. Even financial aid officers at the school can help you out. Burning pet peeve of financial aid officers and administrators is that when we hear a student and their parent, they paid an organization to file your FAFSA, it's free to apply. The FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Okay, it's free. Never pay someone for money. Remember that, I said that. Make sure you're on the right website as well, FAFSA.gov. Gov meaning Department of Ed is it's a federal government website. If you go to FAFSA.net, FAFSA.com, it actually is third-party companies, private companies, that actually make it look like Department of Ed FAFSA's website. They're going to charge you to file the FAFSA. They're going to say things like, oh, we're going to get it processed quicker. We're going to ensure that you get aid, the maximum amount of sources of aid. They're going to charge you money. When you fill out your FAFSA, it's all done. If you do it on the government website, it can be done within 30 minutes, and the Department of Ed will submit the information to the schools within 1 week usually. So there's not going to be any delays, and these third-party companies can't do anything better. They're all they're doing is just scamming you and taking your money. There are companies that actually will file your taxes for you and say, well, since it asks a lot of questions about your tax return, well, guess what? We'll file your FAFSA as related to your tax service. Again, it's free. You shouldn't have to pay extra money for that. So don't worry about the FAFSA preparer information. You, the student, and our parent should be completing the FAFSA. There'll be a section for certification of statement of educational purpose at the very end. The student completes this. What that is that you're attesting, you, the student, the information is correct, and you are pursuing a degree. The Department of Ed will not award financial aid to a student that is just going to class just for whatever, entertainment, no purposes. You must be pursuing an educational goal or the pursuit of a career. That's why you're taking these classes. The very end, then, it's time for the signatures. Remember I talked about the FSA ID? You, the student, and one of the parents completes the FSA ID, and you can fill it out and sign electronically at the very end. If you don't want to do it electronically, then you can do a signature page or the paper FAFSA, but that is going to delay the process. You're looking at 8 to 10 weeks as opposed to 1 week. That's the big difference. So that's it, basically. That's the entire FAFSA process. Quick and simple, those are all the questions related. I've given you basically a breakdown, question by question. I just couldn't fill it out for you, but I gave you a question by question. That's everything it asks for. Now, the reason why applications get delayed is because these are common errors. Social Security numbers. You may just, when you're doing it online or you fill it out, you type in or you write in the wrong number, you switch them. If you have it wrong, what's going to happen is Department of Ed will cross-reference your Social Security number information with Social Security Administration to make sure that the information is accurate. If it's not, doesn't match up with Social Security Administration, you're going to get a rejected message, and then your FAFSA couldn't be processed, and that's going to restart the process. It's going to delay the process. Continued errors, and this is a valid question I get all the time. Well, another error is divorced, widowed, remarried, parental information. Who provides that information? Well, here's the deal. The FAFSA, when you complete the FAFSA, it's a snapshot of your status, you the student or the parent status, the day you complete the FAFSA. So, for example, if the parents are divorced, okay, say hypothetically they're divorced, well, it's the parent that provides the most financial support for the upcoming academic year. So say hypothetically you have a high school senior, student's a senior right now, so you're planning on going in 17-18 year, July 1st, 2017 till June 30, 2018. Well, which one of the divorced parents will provide the most financial support for that student, more than 50% financial support for the academic year in question, the FAFSA year? If that person that's providing more than 50% financial support is remarried, then that person must have their spouse information on the FAFSA as well, their spouse and tax information. If it's a widowed, well, when you fill out the FAFSA, if the parent unfortunately is widowed, if it just occurred during that year, then you may have 2015 tax return information. Then you may have to just fill it out with the 2015 tax information, inform the school, and they can do an adjustment. Same thing if anything doesn't match the 2015 tax information. What's going to happen though is if it's a divorce, if it's a remarried situation, well, you're going to have to basically separate the taxes out. If you know, if it's an odd situation where, not odd, but a special situation where, you know, parents filed taxes jointly in 2015, got divorced, got remarried, it's 2017, well, you're going to have to figure out, say it's dad is the financial aid support, 50% more, 50% support, well, and dad's remarried, so dad, you get dad's information, dad's wages, dad's taxes, and new stepmom's information, put that in. Continuing on, income earned by parents or step-parents. If they're step-parents and they're married, the day they complete their FAFSA, got to get those in there. Their information is counted as well. Untaxed income. Make sure you disclose any untaxed income, any other sources of income you made. You must disclose that. Taxes paid. We get a lot of error where just people are just not updating their tax information off the tax form correct. A common one is I get taxes paid equals adjusted gross income. They're just not sure what to fill out, so the adjusted gross income, which is the amount you earn throughout the year, matches your taxes paid. Well, that's impossible, unfortunately, so that is an error, and that could delay the FAFSA process. Household size. This is the big one. There's going to be a question on household size. So if you're a dependent student, it's going to ask your parents' household size. What the household size is if you, the student, has any siblings, brothers, sisters, or really it comes down to it, your parents, it's who you will provide financial support for in the household, more than 50% financial support throughout the upcoming academic year. So you count, say parents are married, mom, dad, there's 2. Let's say it's John Jr., the student, there's 3. Then any siblings, anybody in the household that the parent provides more than 50% financial support is counted in that household size for the household question. Number of household members in college, it's going to ask you a question like that. If you're a dependent student, you do not count the parents. So if the parents are taking classes the upcoming year, 17-18 year, any of the parents, They should not be included in the household members in college. It's just any of the dependents that are in college. So it's just calculating as part of the EFC calculation how much the parents have to spend for college-related costs. It's not their own, but their dependents. Real estate and investment net worth. As I mentioned before, the home you live in is not considered real estate value. Don't disclose that. So if you have any other investment property, rental property, investment net worth, as I mentioned, that's the liquidatable asset. If you were to sell your stocks and bonds today, how much would you liquidate it for? I'm going to pause here because I see there's another question at this time.
Hi, Thomas. We do have a couple of questions, actually, if you don't mind. Related to income, we have someone who is wondering about Social Security benefits that are not for disability, where they get to put those on the form if you don't earn enough to have to file a tax return.
Generally, Social Security is not disclosed at all on your income. That would be your death benefits, your disability. Social Security is not included.
Okay, that's great to know. And Thomas, related to EFC and sort of the expectation there, what happens when the student and the mother are 100% supported by the stepfather?
In that case, then the stepfather must provide their information on the taxes, on the FAFSA, their tax information, and then it would use that information to determine your EFC calculation.
Very good. We're making notes here as well, Thomas. Thank you so much. We'll continue to take audience questions, but thank you for breaking there for a couple of them.
Okay, and just to reiterate again, it's the snapshot of the day you file your FAFSA. So the day you file your FAFSA, if your parents are married, they're remarried, then you've got to have that information on there, okay? So after you complete your FAFSA, these are the next steps. We're wrapping up. There's only a couple more slides. I didn't think I said it'd be about an hour. We're going a little over an hour, but I think we're allotted for 2. What's going to happen is the central processing system, which is the Department of Ed, they will inform you that they received the FAFSA by email if you have a valid email on file and you have your FSA ID. They're going to send you your student aid report, your SAR. Your student aid report is a summary of all your FAFSA answers. At the very end of the FAFSA, you're going to know you submitted correctly because it's going to give you a valid EFC number. If it doesn't give you an EFC number, there's an error and they couldn't calculate your EFC. You get an EFC number instantaneously. At the very end of the FAFSA also, when you submit it, if you have the signatures, everything correct, you're going to get your EFC number and your estimated Pell Grant. You're going to be eligible for the year based upon full-time enrollment. So you're going to get an estimated Pell Award. You're also going to get the amount that you can borrow and what you indicate as your degree and your first time in college or whatever class you are, freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. So you'll get this at the very end. That's how you know it's correct. You'll get that information emailed to you also. You'll get a copy emailed to you in your student aid report. What's going to happen then is the school will get what's called the ICER. What that is, that's just your FAFSA results. Okay, we call it the ICER in the financial aid office. We generally get it. Here they say 10 to 14 days. For the most part, it's within a week. Colleges may say longer, but it's mostly within a week. So what you could do, remember when I mentioned earlier, you have up to 10 spaces to list colleges? Well, when you submit it, you're not sure. Fill out your FAFSA, submit it, give it about a week and contact the financial aid office. Hey, I submitted my FAFSA. I listed your school on there. Did you get my FAFSA results? Can you provide me any information, early estimates of awards so I can see what I'm eligible for? Certainly you can do that. So the school gets the FAFSA results roughly about 10 to 14 days, really it's about a week. Then we may request additional documentation. You may be selected for a process called verification. What that is basically it's like an audit process. Remember I mentioned the IRS data retrieval site is down at this time? Well, that was the only way in the past to ensure 100% accuracy with your tax information straight from the IRS. Now you're transferring data off of your tax return, so there may be errors. If the school has seen something that looks odd or the Department of Ed, they may select, or they may ask for a copy of your IRS tax transcript, not your tax return, but your tax transcript, straight from the IRS. You may have to request that and submit it to the financial aid office, and they will audit your information and make sure it's correct. So keep in mind, stay in contact with the financial aid office. Any additional supplement applications or information, you may have to complete that. If you need to make corrections, do it on the website, again, FAFSA.gov. Don't do it through the paper because I mentioned 8 weeks. You may also be able to contact the financial aid office and do it through there. If you already know what school you're going to go to, you can submit it through there. Completing then this presentation, special circumstance. Remember when I said that when you complete your FAFSA, it's a snapshot of the day you complete your FAFSA, with the exception of your tax information. Remember, right now we're going off of prior year 13. Well, it's 2017, so things could have changed. Financial aid office and department is aware of that. You know, we hope that tragedies or things have not occurred that have worsened your financial status. But let's say, for example, 2015 income lists a high income, and since 2015, mom or dad have lost their job, or they are working less, or maybe there's an accident, unexpected medical bills, or something along those lines, or death of a loved one. Well, if you can document what occurred, contact the financial aid office at the school you attend. What they could do is possibly request additional information, and they can actually review it and do a recalculation of your EFC. You may be eligible for additional sources of scholarships and grants. So keep that in mind. It's not set in stone, your FAFSA, your EFC number. If things occur, contact us in the financial aid office. We're here to help. We're not here to restrict you. We want to make sure you obtain your education and you can afford the education. So let us know. Common special circumstances, as I mentioned, change in income, change in employment status, unusual medical expenses, change in parent marital status. Maybe a divorce has since occurred, and now you're a single income. You know, that's a possibility. Or there could be a special circumstance where, unfortunately, student is homeless or a refugee and unable to get parent information, or just wants to petition for independent status based upon documented things like abuse or neglect. Let the financial aid office know. We're here to help, and certainly can possibly, no guarantees, but do recalculation of your financial aid. So that concludes the presentation and the information. I do appreciate you all being on, and we do have time for questions at this time.
Thank you, Thomas. We certainly here at Florida Shines have learned so much about financial aid today. We do have a couple of questions, and I want to encourage the audience to continue to send any general questions that you have for Thomas. Thomas, related to special circumstances, if there was a house foreclosed in 2015, in terms of the timing and filling out the form, how does that play a role?
It would not, because as I mentioned earlier, you do not count your real estate, the house you live in, on your FAFSA. The real estate is only investment income, meaning an investment home that you're renting out for additional sources of income. If it's that case, then if it's been foreclosed or sold upon, then I would imagine that investment home, you would put 0 for the value then, because you would not have any value on it.
Okay, good to know. Our next question is related to several sources of income. If parents have to work through 2 tax forms through the filing process, so it's the job, regular job, and then a personal business, how does that work on a FAFSA form? Does it ultimately look at the combined income? Is there something special they have to do to fill out the form with those 2 incomes?
Well, I would imagine you're probably using still your 1040. It would be the 1040 because you probably did not itemize, and so you would use your 1040. It's going to pull off of your adjusted gross income. It's also going to pull off of your business income. You may have to provide the school your Schedule C as well, but overall, it'll pull information through the formula through off of your wages, your adjusted gross income, your business income. If you have losses in your business income, then the FAFSA will tell you cannot put the loss. You would have to put the business income as 0, and then it would calculate off of that. If you have a corporation or Schedule K, then that's a different form you would have to use and disclose on there, and there's information on the FAFSA that will ask you for your investment or your corporation value and information on there as well. But for the most part, if it's a business, then it will just be straight off of the 1040 tax return then.
Thank you, Thomas. Very good information. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions for our high school students and parents of high school students who are on the line related to filling out the form. So if the student doesn't know what college or university they're going into and they don't know the major that they're going into, should they wait to fill out the form? Do you recommend they do it within the time frame? Is there a way to reflect that on the FAFSA?
I would never wait to fill out the FAFSA as long as you have that, and you should have the 2015 tax return at this time. For the most part, mostly everyone does. So I would fill out the FAFSA if you're not sure what school. As I mentioned, you have up to 10 spaces. If you're not sure what major you're going to, I would at least at a minimum, submit that you are pursuing a associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. Remember, you must be a degree-seeking student in order to qualify for federal student aid. It's not locking you into a contract or anything like that. You can certainly change it later, but at least it gets you FAFSA in on time by any deadlines. So you fill out with what you're planning. It's not going to say what you are going to do. It's just what you're thinking about planning. If you're not sure, to indicate either an associate's or a bachelor's degree. You must be, again, pursuing a degree in order to qualify for federal student aid.
Thank you, Thomas. So again, if you're a senior in high school, don't wait. Fill out the form as soon as possible. And if you're a junior in high school, be on the lookout. Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, the October 1st is when they should be able to start working through that process this year?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you so much. And related to eligibility and family size, Thomas, do siblings in graduate school get considered as part of the household size and ultimately the EFC number?
They generally would not because they would be considered an independent student. It really, there are some special circumstances if the parent provides more than 50% financial support and appeal and provide documentation, but they generally would not be.
Okay, very good, which is a good thing ultimately. So that's great information to know, Thomas. I do not see any other, actually we did have, my apologies, we did have one question come through. One last question, Thomas. Does the FAFSA look at gross income, then account for exceptions, or will it account for itemized deductions, including employment expenses and all that? How does that play into the FAFSA?
It generally will account your adjusted gross income. It does not really go into your employment expenses, maybe your investment income along the lines of a 401k. Your 401k, it would count that as part of the amount that you contributed towards your 401k then on there. But as far as your employment benefits or anything like that, that's not contributed. It's part of your adjusted gross income is what they mainly go off of.
Okay, good to know. Very good information. Many options for the types of financial aid. And I just want to reiterate your message, Thomas, to never pay to get help for this process and never pay to get free money. If you know the specific school you're going to or your student is going to, you want to connect with that specific financial aid office, and they're always willing to help and answer any specific questions for your situation as well. So we don't have any other questions here, Thomas, on our end, but we do want to thank you for sharing this information today and spending the time walking us through not just the FAFSA, but the whole process in general, which can be overwhelming, but really I think with time, giving yourself enough time to plan ahead will make all the pieces fall into place. So thank you again, Thomas. I want to remind our audience that they're going to receive a follow-up email with the survey. We hope that you'll take a couple minutes to tell us how we can make this event even better in the future, and then we will provide all presentation materials and recordings from today on floridashines.org. So if you'd like to review this information again, we will have it available next week on floridashines.org. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can email us at collegenight@flvc.org. And so again, thank you, Thomas. I'd like to thank our sponsors for today, ACT, Kaltura, Cooter, and the Florida Virtual Campus for making this event possible. And Thomas, we appreciate you taking the time today to share your expertise with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and best of luck to all the students out there.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too.